Hello, hello! Welcome to the stream. David Stumpik from Snowpeck Games here. Is anybody out there? What did my eyeball counter say? My eyeball counter says there's one person watching, but I don't know who you are until you say something. Hey, it's Nionel. Nionel is the one who's testing it out. I hope it's not just me and you, Nionel. Not that I wouldn't like to spend some time with you. Ooh, you got a cool character. You got like a staff, and I assume that's a mohawk. I don't think your head is necessarily square shaped like that. How are things going, sir? Yes, someone is here. Let me get this thing converted to a... Nope, that's not the right key. A proper... there we go. Overlay. I need to get rid of the timer. Burr, 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 burr. As I always mention on every stream, this overlay is a Godot game that we built on stream at some point. I think it was already like last summer. Jeez, time is flying. Theoretically, this is now she's good. I did not make the sprites. The sprites are Kenny and L made the sprites, and it is just randomized the different pieces that get chosen. Yeah, since no one's here, maybe we could just speak in Polish. You know, it's been so long since I've had the opportunity to have like a whole conversation in Polish. But even if no one is here, usually these videos end up getting like about 100 views, and only like, I don't know, 30 of them are live. So there's quite a few people who are probably going to watch it after the fact. But yeah, so I am still a little bit sick, but I'm a lot better than I was previously. Thinking back to last stream, I kind of feel like I shouldn't even have done it. I was still feeling pretty terrible. I'm feeling real good comparatively today. I have still been having a little bit of trouble. I did not have the COVID, not this time. I've still been having a lot of trouble getting back into the kind of flow of things. I was hoping this week I was going to make the next like rollback netcode video, but I don't know. I didn't. I had very big plans that didn't pan out. I basically mostly been playing No Man's Sky in VR in my free time. But no, I didn't have COVID this time. I did have COVID back in, I think it was November. And I remember I was recording a stream and I'm like, guys, I don't feel very good. And then I went and took a test later that day and I had COVID. So I streamed while having COVID once. Anyway, what are you up to, Nionel? What's your game dev stuff going on? Oh yeah, you're into No Man's Sky? I played it a lot when it came out on the PlayStation 4, and I liked it. I know a lot of people are angry because of the hype or whatever, but whatever. I played it and I had a load of fun. I played like maybe 40 hours of it or something before I got bored of it and moved on to other things. And then just like a week ago, I started playing again in VR this time. And it's like a totally different game than it was back in 2016. I've been having so much fun. It's been really great. I'm trying to get my pa into it because he's big into VR, and he finished Half-Life Alyx some weeks ago, and he's been playing Half-Life Alyx mods. I'm like, oh, you got to come play No Man's Sky, and we can go explore space together, and it'd be super fun. Anyway, so... this week, we're going to be working on the same project we were working on last week. I guess I should give an introduction to what the project even is. That will give me an opportunity to test out the VR casting here. Let me put the headset on. All right, theoretically, I'm back with you. Let me get this unlocked and my screen casting, and I will give a quick intro to the project that we are going to be working on today. Is it coming through? It is coming through. All right, so basically, this is a Voxel Builder thing where the sort of unique feature is that the voxels that you build with out here you create them out of smaller voxels. So here I can create something. Let's, what should we make? For whatever reason, I like making flowers. Let's make a little flower. We'll go kind of on an angle there. That might look interesting. It's going to be, no, let's do a purple flower. Purple is nice. Purple is my favorite color. If you did not know that, probably you didn't. I don't know why I would talk about my favorite color on a stream. It's a common conversation with children, but not other game developers, I don't think. Okay, let's put a little thing on the top there. Maybe we'll do a different shape on the side. Get, this could be like a leaf. And maybe we'll do like a little kind of thing here to round out this curve. I'm not exactly sure how to do this one. Maybe like that. That's a little weird. I don't know. I like it though. Let me put another leaf sort of thing. This is more like a weed. This is like a wildflower that you would find. Actually, let's try something interesting here. Let's make this voxel be curved and see how that looks. I like that. I don't know why, but I like it. It makes me think too, maybe this one should be facing the other direction. Like, I'm getting way too into the art part here and much less the textplanation here. That may have been too much. That may have been too much. Let's I need to point down to get this pointing in the right direction. Let's just go with that. All right. So I've created this this little voxel here. I go back to the bigger grid, and I can now place it. So that's the idea. I want to make kind of like a very fast creation tool, either for the creation of art or possibly level design for some voxel-based game where we can start doing interesting things with voxels like destruction and all of that kind of fun stuff. Last time, on the last stream, we were working on adding these non-square, like non-just perfect cube voxels, which you saw me using. Let me actually edit this one. You saw me using here these kind of curved ones. Hopefully you guys are still seeing what I'm seeing. That was interesting. I gotta tell you guys, let's actually, here, I'll take off the headset. We'll look at code. I was, we have this little script, right, that's generating these shapes as array meshes. And this was not the easiest experience. Like writing code that programmatically creates these array meshes like kind of sucked, and it was a big mess. And I learned a bunch of things. I posted this on Discord. We were creating them manually. Apparently Godot has some built-in tools for creating array meshes that I did not know about until like yesterday. There's this surface tool class, which is specifically designed to make creating array meshes easier. And we 100% should have been using this. Eventually, I'll convert the code to use it. I haven't yet. But yeah, this will make like life 1,000 times easier. I also had the wrong winding order. I had assumed that Godot used counterclockwise winding order because that is the OpenGL default. But once I discovered this tool, I also discovered this very useful note. And so that's why the faces weren't working quite the way I thought. There's this other tool, which is also very cool, mesh data tool, which I also didn't know about, which is not for creating brand new meshes, but easily editing existing meshes. So another thing we were talking about was like, well, maybe we should create these in Blender because like life is so much easier. Just create a thing in Blender. And I was like, well, but I want to be able to mess with the vertex colors and all these different things. Well, we could create them in Blender and then use this mesh data tool to like just modify the vertex colors. So everything we were doing last week was harder than it should have been. This week, what I want to hack on is this palette. Right now, I'm the only person on Earth that can try this app out, use this game, because none of the buttons on this palette are labeled in any way. And the palette is sort of janky, like, I don't know if you saw here, like these kind of flow further than they should, and it's a little weird. So what I want to work on today is fixing up this palette. The code is also a terrible mess, so we'll reorganize that a little bit, because my primary goal at this point is to get this to a place where I'm testing it a lot, where maybe other people are testing it, and we can kind of try and feel out like, does this work well enough? Is it usable enough? What is interesting here? How should we evolve this? Hey, Phil Do, you made it early on this time. Welcome to the stream. Yeah. What did 9L say while I was showing stuff? Still working on his puzzle game. Oh, cool. I don't remember the details of your puzzle game. I probably already asked you, but I would love to, if you have a link or something you can share, I'd love to see some more about it. It appears that design, color theory, blending, building a scene, and styling things take an insane amount of time. Yes, everything in game dev takes an insane amount of time. Even if I was a professional artist, I think it would still take quite a lot of time. Yep. Now I look like a cyborg. The best kind of cyborg, a gaming cyborg. All right, so that is more or less what I want to hack on today. And I think I will find a use for this mesh data tool that I was just talking about, because with the palette, I think one of the priorities will be, well, two of the priorities will be its layout should be programmatically generated, because I want different tools to be able to add things to the palette and change the way it works, rather than like I'm going to design the perfect palette and then everything's going to be hard-coded to it, for two reasons. One, I want to be able to quickly experiment in adding new tools and changing the way things work in a relatively speedy way. And also, I'm obsessed with modding. I put modding in all my games. I don't know why, but I want to have the ability for mods to add new tools and new stuff to the palette. So that's one of the priorities, that everything's going to be dynamically generated in code. And we want to make that kind of nice. And the other thing is I want to try to use just one material for the palette. I don't know why I have this obsession right now, but I have this obsession with trying to use as few materials as possible. And actually, Phil, I should ask you about this. Hey, Smail Leba, welcome to the stream. I've been thinking a lot about meshing. There is no meshing in my prototype currently, because like I said last time, I'm still trying to figure out what a voxel means in my game, and depending on what the definition of a voxel is, that will change the way I do meshing, because I'm thinking I'm going to have non-cuboid voxels. You know, the voxels that we're making on the small grid to then put on the big grid could have any kind of shape. But I've been trying to think about how to, I want the whole voxel world to be a single material. I guess for optimization, you know, the quest isn't super powerful. I'm kind of targeting the quest. So I want the whole voxel world to be a single material. And I've been trying to think of ways that the meshing could work. So when I finally get to that point, I can have it work that way. But like in your voxel game, all of the voxels are cubes that are textured, right? So when you do your meshing, do you have a separate material for each of the different textures? Or like, do you do like 3D textures? I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think, because like, okay, so if you do meshing, right, you're taking like a row of voxels, and rather than generating, you know, all of the faces, you're generating like a single long face. And in order to have the texture repeat on that long face, you can't be using a texture atlas, right? You would, because you want to be able to set like the UVs to like, if it's 5 blocks long, you want to say the UV of this vertex is 0 and the UV of this vertex way at the end is 5. So it repeats that texture, right? So like my go-to thing would be, if I want one material, I'd use a texture atlas. But in this case, I want also to have repetition. So then 3D textures? Like I'm trying to just wrap my mind around that. Smailiba, thanks indeed. We learn a lot from you. That is very nice to say. Thank you. 9L says the quest isn't powerful. I mean, it's powerful as far as cell phones go. The quest is like a cell phone strapped to your face, basically. It's like a mobile GPU with a mobile processor, and you know, it's better, I think, than my phone here, but like it's still not as powerful as a desktop would be. The graphics are sort of like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 quality when you're running natively on the device. That's why there's so many like PlayStation 2 games being ported to the Quest. We have Resident Evil, what is it, 4? I have it. I haven't played very much of it. And then there's that Grand Theft Auto. So we're kind of at like PlayStation 2.5 quality. But yeah, so Phil says, figuring out what the definition of voxel, yeah, so that's where I'm at in the prototype thing. But he's saying greedy meshing is no longer worthwhile, even with moderately modern hardware. However, absolutely, you do want to combine chunks or some aggregate of voxels into a single mesh, and you should find a way to have them be on the same material. Okay, so in your meshing, you're still having an individual face for each of the voxels. You're not like combining that into one big face. So all you're doing, essentially, if I'm understanding you correctly, is removing the faces that wouldn't be seen. Because yeah, like if I'm still making a single face for every voxel, then I can still assign like I can still have one texture that is an atlas with each of these things and doing it like that. I just worry, like, is that too many vertices? Like, I guess like in the end, I'll probably need to experiment. Okay, that's interesting. If that is viable, that is so much simpler. But like, I think I could do greedy meshing and repeat potentially with 3D textures. Like, how do 3D textures work? 3D textures. Has anyone done anything with 3D textures? Like, how do you do the UVs for a 3D texture? Yeah, my Google foo is not turning up like a good answer here, but it's like, so 3D, because it's thinking I'm just talking about texturing in 3D with UVs. Like, let me just search for like Godot texture 3D and see if there's like some links here. It's like, how do you set the depth, right? Like, 3D textures can only assemble shaders in the GLES3 backend. Okay, so that's already limiting me. I won't be able to use this in Godot 3 on the Quest. Unfortunately, in Godot 3 on the Quest, you have to use GLES2 for dumb reasons. It's like GLES3 should be totally viable on the Quest, but just like the design of Godot 3, they decided to make the GLES renderer be the high-end renderer. So it's not that GLES3 is actually like harder to do or anything. It's just they decided that the GLES3 renderer would assume it's on a desktop and do desktop-y things. So I guess in GLES2, this is impossible, so I shouldn't be thinking about 3D textures for now. But maybe in like Godot 4 land, when it's like the Vulkan mobile renderer exists, can I like assign the UVs in such a way that like I could make, for example, a 3D texture that's 8x8 on the X, and then as many deep as I need to, like, I don't know. Greedy meshing complicates and slows mesh gen. It may or may not be an issue, and it definitely can be done 3D textures, though I really think is the wrong move. Extremely expensive. Well, because how do you have textures repeat if you have a texture atlas? Like, I just don't know how to do that. Maybe there's a trick I'm not aware of, because the usual thing that I'm doing is that I just set the UVs to some multiple of, like the, like I was saying before, if it's 5 wide, I would set the UVs on this end to 0 and the UVs on this end to 5, and then it would just repeat that texture 5 times. But that's different than 3D texture, though. Well, the reason that I'm thinking about 3D textures is because, like, if I can specify the depth in the UV, because the only way I'm going to do this with one material is if there's only one texture or a small number of textures, right? Because the material can't just like add a new texture for every single like block face that I'm going to have. I don't know. Maybe we should talk about this some other time, not on the stream. But like, this problem has been driving me a little bit crazy as I've just been working on it in my head. Anyway, let's dig into the problem at hand. If you have anything else though to like add to this conversation, please say so in the chat, because I would love to hear about it, even if we don't dig into it on stream. Anyway. So we are working on the... I do not remember how I organized the code here. So main VR pointer. Where is the palette actually living? Oh, and let me not edit this in here. I want to do my code writing over here in VS Code. So let me just do it this way. Palette. Okay, it's in Builder VR. I guess I still have to open up the scene over in Godot land. So source Builder VR. And I want the palette scene. So there's a whole bunch of problems with this scene. It's all one scene for each of the pages on the palette. So we have the pages defined here, the tools page, the blocks page, the colors page. These need to be broken down into individual scenes that are just loaded into the palette. So we'll have like a palette tools scene, a palette block scene. It's right now all on one script that will need to get broken up into individual scripts for the individual scenes. Currently, all of this stuff is placed literally on here. For example, on the color page, I've placed each of these buttons manually for each of the colors. And what we really want is for all of these things to be placed dynamically. So, oh, and there's another thing that really annoys me. For whatever reason, I built this top down and sideways. Why did I do that? So the palette, you really hold it this way, but we're looking at it from the top. So I want to rotate it so that it's standing upright and forward, and then rotate it into whatever way it needs to be to go into your hand to be attached to the controller. So a lot of stuff. We're gonna rip this whole thing apart. We're gonna rip this whole thing apart and more or less start over. So I guess first things first, let's think about the sizes we want here. I'm pretty sure I made these buttons arbitrarily. I just dragged them, I think. Let me look at the button scene, these mesh instances. They are 0.4 meters on all sides, 0.04 meters, I should say. Which is, it feels good. In VR, that size feels fine. But let's think about if maybe we want to do a different size. So it would be kind of cool to have a symmetry of if the palette was using sizes that were similar to the actual voxel sizes in the game. I don't know if that will feel good or not, but let me just quick look at what is the size of the voxels on the small grid. And I think if I go to Builder Manager GD, it has some constants at the top. Okay, so the small voxels are this size, which isn't that different than 0.04. Let's just go in here, try changing those to be that same size, and see how that feels. So we're going to go over to the button scene, this mesh, change this to this, and it's rounding. There's a project setting that says how many decimal points do we want. I forget what it's called. Does anyone know off the top of your head the project setting float rounding? Floating point values in span forcibly rounded to 3. Yeah, how do I increase that? There's a setting for this. Bias? No, that's something else. Maybe this is too old. I swear there is a project setting for this. Search for the word round. Background. Oh my god. Okay, well maybe we'll deal with the rounding just to just to, hey, the Glean, welcome to the stream. Maybe we'll deal with the rounding just to get a feel for this. It's only 0.0005 smaller than it should be. I swear there's a setting for this. Let me just try a couple more search things here. So this is, so it wasn't precision. Inspector, or maybe it's not a project setting, maybe it's an editor setting. Docs, editors. There is some setting that says what the inspector rounds its values to. The Glean, I'm trying to. I swear there is a setting in the editor to say how many decimal places it will round floating point values to, because I want this value to be 0.03125, and when I put it in the inspector, oh, it actually kept it this time? Before it cut off the 5 for me. Now it's keeping it. Interesting. I thought there was a setting somewhere, though, that would say how many decimal places it keeps in the inspector. But now it seems to be keeping them, so we're good. We're good. And now let me just try this. Everything will be misaligned, but I'm just going to try this in VR and see how that size feels, because this size is the same as the small voxel grid. So we'll get kind of like a design symmetry if they are the same size. All right. I mean, this is all right. This is all right. This doesn't feel too small. It's not too hard to hit. Okay. So let's say this is our button size. And I do like, 4 by 4. So the question is, how big is the palette to accommodate this? And I think I want a little bit of a bigger edge, because I like having these buttons sort of that hang off the edge that kind of intersect with it a little bit. And this new size, they're just like flush to it, which is also kind of interesting. Not here, though. They're intersecting a little bit there. So let's go see what the palette size is currently, and maybe make that be a multiple of the okay, so how are we rotated? Are we rotated? Does this seem right? We are 2 on the X. Okay, yeah, that does seem right. First things first, though, I need to rotate this upward. Or I guess not rotate it, let's just construct it upward. So that would mean we're switching to, we want the negative Z to be the front. And so the X is fine, the Y, I guess we'll move the Z to the Y, and then the Y to the Z and the Z to the Y. Okay. And now, if we make it be our small grid size, was that 3125? Yeah, 3125. Times, say, 6. That's actually a little bit thinner. I was imagining a little bit wider would be kind of nice. Let's try times 8. That might be too big. It's only 0.5 bigger than before. Let's try it. Let's try 0.25. But I guess now that we've rotated everything, I need to also okay, maybe let's not rotate it so that I can just load this in VR and try it, see if that feels like a good size. Default float step. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. When this is done building, is it an editor setting? Is that why I wasn't finding it? I swear I typed float into here. Inspector! Default float step. Ooh, and mine's already nice and big. How many is that? 00001. And I must have changed it at some point. Yeah, doing VR, you get these real tiny sizes. Real tiny sizes. Okay, so Oculus, you are not in my game. Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't take when I tell it to deploy. So I'm just going to hit it again. And then it should load up. The Clean, are you still doing any VR stuff? I remember last time you were saying you were doing a non-VR thing. Are we in? Are we in? We're in. Okay, where's my palette hand? Ooh, that is huge. That is huge. I mean, is it too huge? For the current stuff we have, it's pretty huge. But let's think. What if these buttons aren't over the edge, but are actually inside of it? That might be a little confusing, though. I think this is too big. I think this is too big. Let's try 0.3.125 times 7. That's only slightly bigger than it used to be. And let's jump in there. Oh, Rubik's Cube is in VR. Cool. So is it a Rubik's Cube in your hands? Or is it like a world of Rubik's Cube? I'm actually really intrigued on how you're using VR in there. Yeah. And then how does physics play into it too? That's also very interesting. Ah, come on, Godot. Deploy. I was talking about earlier that I've been playing No Man's Sky in VR a lot the past week. I've played like 14 hours of it, which is a lot of video games for me. Or I guess I should say that's a lot of solo video games for me. I play a ton with my kids, but we play primarily like Minecraft and Spelunky 2 and stuff they like. This seems good. So I'm thinking I'll move these off the edge. Maybe I'll have them be fully off the edge. And then the spacing here even actually seems kind of nice, giving us like a bigger edge there to like really differentiate these edge buttons from the inner buttons, making kind of a model of the edge buttons are like affecting what's in the palette, and then the things in the palette are the actual tools, the actual things you'll interact with. Kind of like this too, going all the way down. So previously they only kind of went part of the way down. It seems kind of cool going in all the way. All right, so I feel like that's a good size. Let's start pulling this apart, rotating everything, writing the code to place all of the pieces. Clean says, I want it to be a learning tool. Physics is an interaction and throwing stuff around in general. Yeah, I mean, VR is not VR if you can't throw everything. Like my first time messing around in VR, it's just like everything I picked up, I'm not going to put it back down. I'm going to chuck it. That's how you do in VR. Okay, so back to the rotation we tried before, but we're really going to commit to it this time. So we are now building the palette right side up. And which pieces are we moving to other scenes? So the tabs will need to be like dynamically generated based on the pages that get added. So I guess we can start by just breaking these up into different scenes. So let me do save branch as scene. We're probably going to start a new directory in here. Not under main. Where have I been doing this? This is in Builder VR. Create folder. Palette. And this will be Tools Palette Page. Tools Palette Page. Or just Tools Palette. Tools Palette Page. We'll go with Palette Page. And the blocks page. So yeah, I'll just go down here, do this for all of them real quick. So blocks, palette page, and colors. Save branch as scene. Colors, palette page. Redoing the colors is going to be annoying. Well, potentially. Let me go look at the code for how the colors are done. Oh, okay, so at least the colors are written in code. So I'll probably break this up into be like a big array that just gives the color values for now, and then we'll need to add some kind of thing that lets the user create their own palette of colors. The word palette is going to be overloaded a little bit. That palette size is oddly specific. Yeah, so what I'm experimenting with is making the palette be sized based on multiples of the small voxel grid to have kind of a symmetry between the voxel grid and the palette, which you're using as the tool to manipulate the voxels. It won't be like perfect because we're not going to align things on the palette on the grid because that would make for a very chunky, weird looking palette. But I don't know, I'm just trying sizes based on multiples of that. If that turns out to not be nice, if it turns out to be dumb, we'll change it. It is arbitrary in the end. Okay, so this whole thing is going to be automatically generated. So we may as well just delete these. Or maybe keep them around for a second to get the position. Nah, let's just delete it. Let's just delete it. We're redoing all the positions anyway. And so this back button... is that a core feature of the palette? I guess so. I guess so. Let's place this one manually as a thing that's... What did I do? Why isn't it moving? Oh, because it's hidden. I was looking at the wrong button. All right, so this will appear on the top left, and I want it to be completely flush with the side of the palette, which we can calculate what that position is since we're going to need to use it dynamically anyway. Let's throw some constants in here. Got an itch on my head. I got an itch under this headset. So we'll say palette. What do we call that? Well, let's break it up into two parts. I was thinking maybe we could have like a single variable like palette extent because it's the same for both, but it is this 0, 3, 1, 2, 5 times 7. My oddly specific size. And I guess button do we do width and height again? I guess so. Width, this is the 0, 3, 1, 2, 5. So then we know that the left edge of the palette would be this half. Wait, okay. I always get confused about which things in Godot take like half values and which take whole values. So this is a whole value, right? So we want half of this minus half of the voxel width thing here. So back button, transform, the x value, let's get our 03125 times 7 first, and then we will divide this by 2, and is that positive x? Wait. That's positive x. That's backwards for my brain. Okay, I think we actually want to work on this side because I want x and y. Okay, so I'm going to need to remember that forward is a different direction than usual. But when I'm writing the code for x and y, I think I want x, to go positive to the right. So let's do it from this side. So this would be negative, and we'll bring it this way. And we need to additionally subtract half of 03125 divided by 2. There. That is a position perfectly flush, or perfectly, considering math error, flush with the left-hand side. And z, I think we want the thing to go nearly all the way in. And we're having it go 0.02 in. Does that make sense? So the z value we want to be so that would be a voxel without, and when you subtract 0.2 from that, that ends up being very close to nearly in. I don't know, we can try that. We'll need to consistently use some value for all the buttons. And the distance from the top, let's say this is half of a voxel grid size, so 03125 divided by 2. Nope, I did that wrong. Okay, so what I want is the palette, negative 03125 times 7. That will put us at the top of the palette. Not negative, positive. I'm used to 2D. What am I doing wrong here? Here's our back button. The Y. Oh, okay, so I want half. Yep, okay. So this divided by 2 puts us at the top, and then we want to go down. Let's try 03125. Yeah, that seems good. That's a good spot to start. All right, so we have some nice values. We'll get these baked into constants as well, so that we can use it for the the clean. That is a beautiful idea. Yeah, let's set the grid size. I forget which button that is. Where's our 3 vertical dots? I thought we had vertical dots. No. Configure snap. There we go. Okay, so this will be the 03125 divided by 2. I can't do math here? You gotta be kidding. All right, okay. I gotta calculate that elsewhere. Let's go. Say, constant say half grid 03125 by 2. So this value. Let's go here. Configure our snap. All right, and then we'll enable snap, which I believe is that button. And so now, hey, that is nice. And then that also worked for our value here. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Okay. Yeah, that's I guess another advantage to basing this all on that same grid size. Cool. So yeah, this back button gets hidden and shown depending on whether we are in the small grid or the big grid. Then we need to add our pages. I think for now, we'll just have like an array of pages in this script, and then in the future, we'll have some mechanism to like load a list of pages from somewhere for when modding happens, because it's going to happen. It happens in all my games. I think I even actually like pulled in the class I always use for my modding stuff. Yep, I have my modding auto load already in here. Okay, so we will say pages, and we'll make an array that holds each of the pages. Do we need to give them names? Can we just put the scenes? I think we do want to give them names. Maybe this is a dictionary, because we want to be able to have the pages refer to each other. So, what are they called? Oh, I'm trying to do the code in VS Code because I've been slowly falling in love with VS Code. I still kind of hate it, but I've been getting into it. I've been getting into VS Code. I like this idea that I could get to a point where I'm using one editor for every programming language that I use. I actually, this past week, I spent the whole week writing PHP code in VS Code. I normally use PHP Storm, which honestly is way better. PHP Storm is way better. But I've been experimenting with like what extensions and my own configuration and all this stuff to see if I can get to a point where it's like good enough. And then I could be doing PHP, GDScript, C++, C#, like all in VS Code, and I feel like that would be great. Anyway, so tools, then we'll do like preload, and then we just need to, yeah, so now I'm in VS Code land. I can't just drag this over. I'm just talking about VS Code and I can't do a thing that I would just have done. Okay, so here's what I would do in the Godot Editor for the same situation. Oh, hang on, let me save this. In the Godot Editor, I can just drag this guy over the tools palette page. Boop. Is there a way to do that with the Godot extension over here? It probably auto-completes if I were to type it. Let's try preload, and then if I start typing res, no, it doesn't autocomplete it. All right. Well, there's a thing that VS Code does less well. This would be color palette page, and then blocks. Actually, I think blocks goes before colors. Blocks palette page. Okay, so when things start out, we want to load our pages. So I guess which this wouldn't be pages, would be like page scenes, and then we need a different variable for holding like the instances of the pages. Go here. Oh, okay, we already are calling something pages. We'll just call this pages parent. And so we're going to go say for page scene in page scenes. We'll assign, or hang on, we gotta, this will give us the names. This will be page scene name, page scene equals page scenes, page scene name. And then we will instantiate it. Instance. There's probably some setup that we will want the pages to do. I'm not exactly sure how that will look yet, so we'll just maybe throw a to do in here. Allow page to set itself up. And then we will add the page to our pages list. Page. And before that, let's add it to the scene. So we have our pages, parent, add child, page. And then we need to also create a button for it in the, or a tab. We're calling them tabs. Over here, a tab. So I guess we need to keep track of, we'll say like tab Y pose, which will start at the top, which let's make a constant for that. So this will be like const tab Y start. And we used that for our back button already, so we can grab. Is that really what it comes out to? 0.02? Such a round number. Negative, wait, no, that can't be right. No, that's the button press. Haha, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay, this is the number, this whack number over here. Yeah, because it has to be positive. Again, my 2D brain is sneaking in here where up is negative y. Okay. So tab y start. This is actually just the side tabs. This would be like tab side tab y start. So we have our y pose. Side tab y start, and we need to create a tab button, which will be, do we have the button scene loaded here? We do not. Const palette button, I think is what we called these. What did we call them? Palette button, yep. Equals preload. And again, I can't auto, or can I? No, God. I need to complain to the, oh, here we go. That works. Okay, palette button. There is a way to do it from VS Code with autocomplete. Aha, there we go. I was about to say I need to like open an issue with the VS Code thing. Oh, Clean's got a roll. Yeah, thanks for coming even for a little while. Catch you next time, the Clean. Or wait, what is palette button versus palette block button? Palette lock button. palette button. Design decisions I don't remember making. Okay, so the code for palette button looks like it gets pressed. We change material when we're overriding. Or we change the material when we are touching it, when we are intersecting. And then what do we do in palette button? No, that is palette, or do palette block? Okay, that was palette button. Palette block button. Oh, okay, palette block button is one of those buttons that holds a voxel in it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so palette button is what we want. We're creating a new one. Palette button. Instance. So pages parent, we're going to need to also have a tabs parent. Tabs. So much little fiddly stuff. Less fiddly than last week, though. So add child, tab button. So that puts it there. Need to make sure to connect to the signal, the pressed signal. And this will be, I guess we'll have to make a new method to call here, but this will be something like on tab pressed, and then we need to pass in the name of the page that we're going to change to page scene name. Which will do our show page business here. We'll need to do it a little bit differently. So if pages not has node, if pages has key, right? Because we have our pages thing, which is keyed. Why are you yelling at me, VS Code? Has key is not declared on dictionary. Well, what is it called? What is it called on dictionary? Pages has. It's just has. Doesn't seem right. Oh, okay, I guess it is. Okay, returns true if the dictionary has a given key. Beautiful. So for child in pages values, pages name visible, and we're going to need to add something here that some method that gets called on the pages to let them set themselves up. Okay, so oh, and we didn't position the tab button at all. Okay, so the tab button, its translation needs to be set to an X value that we'll look up in a second, tab Y pose, and a Z value we'll look up in a second. And then at the end, tab Y pose, we need to add to it the grid. What did I call the constant? I made a constant for it. Half grid. Oh, okay. Well, I guess this will be button height. It will add button height plus maybe the half grid. I don't know if that'll look good, but we'll see. All right, and then the X value, this would be like side tab X. Let's look that up. So I think it's just the same value we put the back button's X at, but positive rather than negative, I think. Try that. Assign tab X. So here we go. We'll use that here. Assign tab X. And then the Z value, another constant we figured out when placing this button. Is that just the button height? All right, well, we'll make a constant for that anyway in case we want to have those values go in a different direction. We'll say button Z, and it will again be this value. Button Z. Okay, so this should position the tabs. This I can actually make simpler. I don't need on tab pressed. We already have this show page method. We can reuse that. And theoretically, this should work for the hiding and the showing. Nothing else will work. These tabs won't actually do what they're meant to do because we've torn everything apart and have not put it back together again. But why aren't you saving? Save. Okay. But this should be enough to test that bit of code. So let me deploy to the quest. Since there's more people here than when I originally asked the question, how's everybody else's projects going? I heard a little bit from Nyanel and his puzzle game, and the Clean and his VR Rubik's Cube. Phil, I haven't heard I haven't seen an update from you in a while on the game dev Discord. Oh, okay. So we'll have to rotate this palette here, but it does appear to be working. Yep, we'll have to change the direction the buttons are moving, and we have to change the orientation of the palette in the left hand. And those are some quick things we can do. So the buttons, actual button pressed vector, is this the default? It is. So we can go into the scene and actually change the code, change the default. It's going to now go -Y. Phil is saying, yeah, I'm actually going to be testing Gnome Tower with a bunch of UWM Milwaukee students tonight. Awesome. Some play tests. That's brilliant. Hey, the buddy Adrian. Welcome. I've been watching the stream, but I haven't said anything. So hello, my platform project has been going well. I got it working with the rollback netcode add-on. Awesome. Awesome. I loved the way that your characters looked in what I've seen of your game. So if you have any more screenshots to share, man, share them. Phil Do says, so I'm trying to knock out a bunch of low-hanging fruit before then. Platform fighter project. I mean, yeah, you're doing like a Smash Bros. Like thing, right? At least that was the impression I got, if you did not directly say that. Okay, so this should be good here. Let me check out the hands. Where are the hands defined? I don't remember. Yeah, that's great to hear that your guys' projects are going so good. Okay, no, function voxel palette. Yep, this is where it is. This is where the palette is attached to the hand. And it is now the totally wrong orientation. So this X rotation is probably right. So we're rotating this way. This Z is probably wrong. Or not. What are these buttons here? I don't remember. Let's go back to the palette here. Which buttons are these? What is this? Oh, because I haven't removed. I need to remove these. Okay, those are gone. So the only thing remaining, and I don't know why this is positioned over here. That's interesting. I'll have to investigate that in a minute. The back button is up here. Let me just show this so that when I'm aligning it with the hand, I make sure it looks right. Okay, this seems like it might be the right orientation. Let's give this a shot. Deploy. It may actually be that things aren't working as I had thought they were, because we still had those scenes attached, those instances of those other scenes. But we will find out in a moment. That is the wrong position. Oh, am I adding to y when I should be subtracting from y? I think that's exactly what's happening here, but otherwise, they're moving in the right direction. They are changing the page, so we are moving forward. Palette, we'll go back to hiding that back button. And we need to change this code to subtract from the Y position instead of add. My stupid 2D brain. Otherwise, I bet that is working. Now, the pages seem to be strangely oriented. So let's go look at these pages, these page scenes, and see what the deal is. We'll start with the tools page. And we decided that we are facing this direction with the positive Z coming at us. And so, yeah, this is just totally wrongly oriented. This needs to lay itself out dynamically, similar to the other thing, but let's maybe not address that right now. Let's just make this work. So to do that, I think all I need to do is move these around a little bit. Is the snap set the same? It is. So I think I can just drag these around. So I want brush on the left. Brush will be, somewhere over here-ish. And shape be next to it. And we want them to be... Okay, the snap is working a little bit differently than I was expecting. Let me set the Z to 0 and then forward 1. And we'll say that is good enough for now. We'll come back to that. That also makes me realize that these constants that we've just declared up here can't live here because we'll end up with a cyclical dependency if the tools page is loading the palette script to get the palette constants while this is loading the palette page, or we just switch this from preload to load, which actually is probably fine. When this is happening dynamically later, they'll have to be loaded rather than preloaded anyway. Oh, it can't be a constant. It can't be a constant if they are loaded. Right, because then they're determined at runtime. Well, this is all temporary anyway, because we will later have some mechanism to discover, like for it to discover what the pages all are, what the page scenes are. So let's just make this be a variable, not a constant. I think this is fine. This will, loading rather than preloading, will resemble the end thing, so. Okay. So I oriented that page back. I think my next goal is just to make the other pages work again, right? Like we're not going to redesign them. We just want to make them work again, and then we can come through and redesign them next. So unhide this. Oh, geez. Can we cheat? Can we cheat and just rotate the whole thing? Like, why not? Why not? Well, they'll still go sideways instead of... No, I don't care. I don't care if they're sideways. Let's just do this. As my snap not here? The snap is different. I don't know. Let's just make this roughly right. Because yeah, we're gonna be changing all the alignment anyway, so who cares? Who cares? We'll just get those. We did tools, blocks. Blocks is already dynamically generated. Oh, mostly, except for these ones here. Maybe we won't just get them working right away. Let's maybe do them one at a time, I guess. I'm just gonna create scripts for each of them and copy and paste the old code from the palette script into each of them, so we at least get it out of there. And we can kind of ensure that our palette script is the way we want it to be before moving on to the individual ones, just by pulling that code out of there. So I'll just create scripts for each of these scenes. It's always hard, like refactoring, just deciding what approach to take so that you waste the least amount of time. To get it done, which is like some combination of doing it stepwise so you can kind of test it as you go, and you know, trash it and start over wise so that you can write the code sanely enough. All right, so this code can go away. This code goes to the block page, the block palette page script. Of course, it's jam-packed full of errors at this point. Let's just go like, yeah, I guess I'll copy that onReady from here. We have this onReady block list. That should cover that. Oh, voxel library. We'll need to know the Voxel Editor and stuff. I'll just comment out this code for now. It's here. It's out of the way. Back to palette. Pages should react to this. Yeah, I'll have to write the code for that. This we don't need. We no longer need a separate handler for the colors because we now have that generic one. Brush and shape tool stuff. This needs to go to the tool page. Which of course refers to variables that don't exist. this needs to go to the block page. Script. Yeah, this code is so messy. It really got really intertwined. I'll unwind it. And then this is all related to colors. I'm just going to put this variable up here. It's null, but it will stop the script from not compiling. This code goes to the blocks page. Some variables we're going to need the builder manager and the editing voxel ID. Okay, so that's some variable we need to pull over from this script. Editing voxel ID. Okay. This palette script is almost down to the kind of minimum it needs to be at. We can already see from the other scripts needing references to some of the stuff that it has references to. We're going to need to pass that to the individual pages so they can store it or not store it. So I think that would happen here. When we're creating the pages, we'll say like if page has method setup palette page, and then we'll call page setup palette app setup palette page, and then we're going to pass in the builder manager and the voxel editor, which probably means we don't even need to store them here, honestly. Because what are we doing with them in this script? Nothing, really. So we can do something like this. Get rid of them up here. Although we may need to keep those in some of the other scripts as they need them. This one needs the voxel editor. This one needs the voxel editor and possibly the builder manager. Nope, just the voxel editor. And this one needs the builder manager and the voxel editor. And we go back to here. We need to require this in the places we need the builder manager. I guess the voxel editor too. All right, so the pages that need references to those things, we'll have to grab those references when we call this setup palette page method. And this thing where we're voxel object, voxel library changed. The thing that makes this interesting, my original thought was that like we don't even need to connect to these signals because the individual pages that need to connect to them could just connect to them themselves. But since we're connecting to both the world and the block, it does kind of make sense to aggregate that to one thing at the palette level. So then we would need to tell all of the pages about this. So this will be something like for page name in pages, or no, we don't need the page name. For page in pages dot values. We just work with the value. If page has method, and here we will do like I mean, maybe we'll just call a method named exactly like this: on voxel object or library changed. Why not? Then page on voxel library or voxel object or library changed. Voxel object. There. So we'll tell the pages about this change. And here, need to say, hang on. We'll grab a reference to the page that we are showing. And then we will do if page has method show palette page. We'll call page show palette page. All right. So I think this palette script looks basically exactly the way it needs to look. Fully refactored. We are now handing off to the individual palette pages to handle their own stuff. So now let's go try to address the tools palette page. So we need to implement that method that the palette is now calling that we just set up. So let's set up palette page, and it is getting a builder manager and a voxel editor. And because we need the voxel editor, we are going to store that so we can use it later. And this is going to need to dynamically create these buttons, but for now, we can just have it literally call them. So this should mean that the tool palette page will actually work. Or no. Are these signals connected? They are not. Okay, so first we need to connect these signals. They got disconnected when we made this into an independent scene. So now the palette page should actually work. How are we doing on time? 11:22 already? I was imagining this reorganization part would be super fast and that we would spend more time thinking about the material and getting some icons onto the buttons, because similar to how I want to have a single material for the whole voxel world, which I was talking about at the beginning of the stream. I think I also want to have a single material for the whole palette, at least the palette with the default buttons, right? If someone has a mod that adds a new button, those like new buttons will need to have a separate material, but I think that's fine. You know, it's just about keeping the smallest number of materials possible. So here we have reference to a variable that doesn't exist. We'll need to come up with a way to work around that when we get to that particular palette page. Cool. Oh yeah, let me just run it and see if it crashes. So this is the desktop mode. Desktop mode didn't crash. That's a good sign. Oh, it wouldn't matter though, because we're working on the palette, the VR palette. Never mind. That wasn't a good test. Wasn't a good test at all. I think after this, though, getting the palette working so that other people can try it, the next phase will be getting the desktop mode working better, because I really do want to do multiplayer, have some multiplayer editing, and I think having the desktop mode working is essential for getting that jump started, because while I do have two headsets, I only have the one head. So okay, so this is the brush tool, and this is the shape tool. Cool. So the tool page is working. I noticed something that when we first loaded in here, all of the pages we're showing, which is no good. That means we forgot one little step here at the beginning of the palette script, which is when we're adding a new page, it has to be hidden by default. And we're just gonna, at the end, show the first page. So when we create the page, we'll do visible equals false. And then at the very end, we're going to say pages, values. Well, first of all, I'd say if pages count. Is it count? I forget how we do len pages, like in Python. I actually have just somehow forgotten size. Okay, if size is greater than 0, values 0 or no. We want to actually call show page, so the show page logic runs, and it will be pages keys 0. There. Okay, so that should make sure that the first page is shown by default. Now the page was placed in like a totally wrong spot. Hey Slacks, welcome to the stream. Waving back without a real human wave, not an IRC me wave. All right, so I don't know why pages is in this weird spot. What if we just move this to 0? It's not rotated. Then we go to an individual page like the tools page. Now we need to write some code here. I'm going to load the palette so we can access its constants. So Slacks, I am trying to get, we're rebuilding the palette in my VR Voxel Builder thing, making it be dynamic. So rather than created literally, it's code will be creating it, putting everything in the right place. And ideally, if we can get there, also messing with the appearance, making the buttons actually be labeled. Currently, I'm the only person who can use this because all of the buttons have no labels on them. So, yeah, the specific thing I'm working on at this exact moment is making the tools palette page be dynamically created. So, we need a list of the tools, which might be on the Voxel Editor. On the Voxel Editor class here. It is, so Voxel tools. This will be a list of the tools. So that is what we'll use in our palette page here. So like for tool name in Voxel Editor, Voxel tools. And then it will be like tool. No, we just need the name here, actually. We don't need to actually deal with the object. We just need the name. So now we're going to dynamically create a button. So it'll be like tool button. We need the button scene to instance. We instance it. And we'll need to position it, add it as a child. I guess I'll deal with the positioning last. Need to connect to the pressed signal. Like on tool button pressed. And it will give the name of the tool. So we can reduce these two methods to a single onTool button pressed that takes the tool name. But otherwise does the same thing. Voxel Editor set current voxel tool name. Yeah, and we'll have to have some mechanism that the tools give like their icon, which I guess will be a position within an atlas, because like I said, we want to make sure we use the same material for the palette. And yeah, we need to position it. So translation be a vector 3, and we're going to be grabbing constants from the palette. And I think we'll need some new constants. So we'll need to know how far from the edge we want to be. The button Z, we know that that's our Z value. That's easy. So palette button Z. We'll need a tool X that starts somewhere, tool Y that starts somewhere, and we'll need some constants to say what our start position, our kind of like row increment is. Row index. So actually be a floating point value. So let's go look at the palette, see where are we starting. Well, we know we want to do a 4x4 grid. And we know that the full palette is 7 buttons wide and tall. I think I'm going to need to start drawing things here. I don't want clear, I want white. There we go. So the palette itself is 7 by 7 of the buttons, and we know we want 4 across. So, and we know we want the edge on the outside to be a little bit bigger than the spacing on the inside. So this is 4, 4. So we can say that we have 3 gaps. So if this is 4, let's just say for arbitrary sake that the gap is half of a button width wide. Ooh, I've been bringed. Thank you, anonymous bringer. Feel free to say something in the chat so I know who you are. So if each of these is a half, that means we'll end up with, 4 plus 1.5, so 5.5 button widths. Which, what does that leave us on the edge? So, 7 minus that, that's 1.5. So then this space does end up being bigger. Let's try that. Let's try that as a size, and we'll see how it feels. I guess the color, when we make the color page on the palette, that'll give us the best illustration of how it feels, because we fill up the whole 4x4 grid. But we'll try this to start with, and we can always change it because it's going to be baked into some constants that we can just change. So const, it will be like content content start position, and we can actually make the whole vector, which will be nice. Or do we want to make the whole vector? Maybe we don't. So let's say content start x, And so what did we decide on this picture? So this is 0.75 of a 0.75 of a button width. So let's calculate that. So if a button width is this times 0.75, we get that 0.2342375. Nice. And the content start Y would actually be, or no, this isn't exactly right, because these this is how much offset from this edge, but our positions are actually relative to the center. So this is the value we have, and we actually need to subtract that from, or no, geez. Okay, so this value here, this is the palette, half of the palette width negated. Geez. Okay, where's our constants again? So palette width, so we have, okay, I might not do these literals. We'll let these be calculated. So palette width divided by 2 negated plus button width times 0.75. Let's space this out a little bit. That way, if I do this math wrong, we can just change it. Until it's right. Or not 0.75, 75. And this one isn't negative because it is 3D, where positive y is up. Okay, so this is the content start x, content start y, and then we're going to say const button spacing, and this is going to be the half grid. Okay, that seems good. Let's go over to our tools palette here. So the palette content start X, palette content start Y, and this will be tool X, tool Y, and then at the end, we increment our row index by 1. This row index is the position in the row. And then if row index equals 4, then we reset the row index to 0. We also reset the tool X, because we're dropping to the next row, equals the palette content start X again. And we increment the tool Y by the button, nope, hang on, not palette button, button height plus the button spacing. And if it's not, then we simply add to the tool X also the palette button width plus the palette button spacing. Oh, geez. Palette button spacing. Okay, so this should theoretically position the buttons where we want them. Let's give it a shot. And again, this is dynamic, so if I add a new tool to the Voxel Editor, and the tools are kind of like their own special class, it will just automatically get picked up and added to the palette. Once we have a way to denote the icons, the button will get the right icon. So let's see. Where's my hands? All right, so this is wrong, and this is wrong. What even is this? What button is this? I'm not sure. What are these? What's going on? Ah, everything's gone crazy. Okay, well, we did something wrong. What button is this? Okay, I think these are the buttons. All right. Something went wrong here. Oh, okay, so I forgot to remove the old buttons. Those need to go. That's what those were. And we did the math wrong somewhere. So that needs to be fixed. Also, I noticed that the buttons weren't toggling, and they need to toggle. And the way that that is done is we set a button group. So let me go to our tool palette, tool button, button group. This will be tool. And then also, I do want to set the names, so when I'm looking at this in the debugger later, it'll make some kind of sense. So this will be tool name plus button, or maybe underscore button. I don't know. So that should make them toggle. And how did we get the math wrong? They were way too high. Oh, so first of all, when we go to the next row, we subtract from y, because it is positive, is up. But we were only on the first row, which means this content start y is wrong. Content start y. So it's half the palette height plus, not plus, minus. Okay, because we're going down. All right, I think that's it. Oop, you guys can't see what I'm seeing. Let me show that. Didn't take. Didn't take. There's some, I don't know, bug in the Godot OpenXR support that causes this to happen, where it sometimes just doesn't take. I never had this problem before OpenXR when I was using the Oculus mobile API, but the OpenXR support is pretty new, so I expect that bug to get shaken out eventually. There's a couple of other weird OpenXR bugs. Okay, this is not quite right. It should be further. Whoa, my hand was floating away there. I think the problem is we're not adding. We need to add the edge, and we need to add the button size. So this puts us at the edge, but then we need to also add a button width. So this needs to be 1.75. Or maybe 1.25 if it's half a button width. Let's give that a shot. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to doing the multiplayer parts to this. I just love multiplayer. I love working on netcode. But it has been interesting messing around with this, where I've been thinking a lot more about like meshes and rendering than I usually do. I'm used to just like I have an asset. I import the asset. Whatever materials or vertices or meshes it has, that's just what it has. Okay, cool. So this looks right. This looks like the things are in the right spot. And let's just see if the buttons work. So this is supposed to be the brush tool. Looks like the brush tool. And this is supposed to be the shape tool, and it is not. It is not the shape tool. That's still a brush tool. Yeah, okay, what's going wrong? Debugger has 62 complaints. What are your complaints, debugger? Error calling pressed. On tool button pressed. Cannot convert argument 1 from object to string. That is curious. So let's go to Tools Palette page. Tool, oh, not tool button, but tool name. Yep. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've been getting into using VS Code, which strangely I'm not using again. I've defaulted. I've fallen back on using the Godot Editor, but I messed around yesterday with the live sharing feature of VS Code. It's where like your editor is shared with a group of people that can see everything you're doing and can also edit in your editor while you are doing it. It's like a pair programming tool. And I haven't actually ever used it in practice, but I just like pair programmed with myself. I set it up, you know, where I was both the sharer and the one sharing too, just like try it. And I'm really excited about the possibility of using that in a real collaborative project. Have you guys ever tried that, the live share in VS Code? I was thinking about like in the context of a game jam, it would be pretty interesting. Okay, here we go. It actually switched to the block tool. I also noticed something when we came in here, the correct tool was not selected. So we need to make sure at some point that the current tool is the one that's pressed by default. So this is brush. This is shape. Is it shape? There we go. It is shape. Okay, so the buttons are working. Just have that one thing. We need to make sure that the current is pressed. And I'm going to switch back to VS Code. So that's Tool Palette page. And I believe the Voxel Editor has a property for the current, for the current tool. Current Voxel tool name. Do we have a way to get that? Current Voxel tool name. No, it's just an internal property. Okay, so we should make that not be an internal property. Let's make that be a public property that we cannot set. It's just a read-only property. So set read-only variable. And then we need to find all the instances of the original variable name and change it. Oops. All right. Oh no, there is a function for it. God, how did I not see that? Okay, so we're good. It's get current voxel tool name. Okay, I don't know why I'm doing that as a method and not a read-only property, but whatever, it's fine. We'll try and trust that past David from backward in time had a good reason for doing that, and roll with it. So before we connect the signal, we're going to do if tool name equals voxel editor get current voxel tool name, then we will say tool button pressed equals true. Okay. Hey, MC Goomp. How's it going? How are the Goembia these days? All right, I think that should fix that bug. Let's just check. And once that works, I guess we'll go on to the, let's do the color page after that. I know the next in the list is the blocks page, but the color page will give us an idea of if our spacing is the correct spacing. Okay, so it's selected this one by default. It is the brush. Switch to the block. Bam, okay. Tool page done. How are we doing on time? Oh my God. We've just been refactoring this whole time. Well, that's how it goes. That's software development for you. You're just like, oh, I'll just break this one scene up into like 3 scenes. I'll take no time. Took 2 hours so far. We're not even going to be done. Let's see how far we can get. We definitely have made a ton of progress, that's for sure. Oh, and I want to be in VS Code again. So that is the color palette page. First things first, we need our colors to be in some kind of array. So in the future, this will be configurable. For now, we're just going to drop it into a constant array. I'll see how quickly I can convert this. I'm kind of thinking I can put all these next to each other and then write a regular expression that pulls out the color. Regular expressions are a great refactoring tool. If you don't know them, I recommend at some point learning a little bit about them. So let's just test this out. So we wanted to look for color parentheses something to another parentheses. Oh, and we need to match the whole line. We need to make sure that this is not greedy. Whole line to the end. And we need to capture color. Is that remotely correct, regular expression? Oh, you guys probably can't even see it because of the, oh, hey, VS Code, you're so cool. It did the regular expression as I typed it, rather than me having to wait to press enter. Okay, cool, so the regular expression worked. I guess I'll paste that regular expression or something, because so you guys can see it. So what do I have to do to make this one do the, is that right? No. Okay, what did I do wrong here? So this is the regular expression. When I select stuff and then do, oh, it's, okay, couple of things. Number one, I'm going to show you guys the regular expression that I wrote that did that conversion from that whole line into the color. Just so that you guys can see it. How can I copy and paste that in VS Code? I cannot. Ah! Okay, well, if you can see this, this is the regular expression that converts one of those into just the color. If this was real Vim, I could like copy that, but I can't. VS Code. Maybe there's a way to do it, I just don't know it. But I want to apply that same regular expression to a list of things, of everything under the selection, which is similar, but I have to add this sort of cryptic tick this thing, comma, tick this thing, there, and does the whole thing. Huzzah! And then we just need to add some commas Let's get all our colors in there. Is that all of them? Yeah, looks like it. I think. Is that 16? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Oops, did I lose one? Oh yeah, I lost this one. So let's run our regular expression again. There. Yeah, I cannot live without a Vim mode to let me do all of this stuff super duper fast. Okay, so that is the list of colors. And we can copy a lot of the code that we just wrote for the tools palette. In fact, I will just copy this, and then we'll modify it for the color palette page. So rather than tool name, we're going to be getting a color. We pass in here. Oops. And come on. What's going on with you, VS Code? Not recognizing my control. Oh, I've switched to QWERTY. Let's get out of QWERTY. So on color button pressed. Oh, we need to load the palette script to get those constants. I guess we'll say button X, button Y. There might be better names for those in the other one too. Y, button X, button X, button Y, color button pressed. I'm just converting all of this to work with the current code here rather than the code from the previous page. Going through our colors array, doing a color button rather than a tool button. I guess we won't put a name. Yeah, I'll do that code in a second. The code to make sure the right color is selected. I don't remember exactly how that's done. Let me just get the basics here converted. And we need to load the palette button, scene. Okay, so this should position all of the colors correctly. All the color buttons. And this needs to call the right thing to get the current color, which is editor config value color, I think. Okay, this is theoretically enough to put all the buttons there. The buttons will not be the correct color, however, because we're not setting it. We need to do a thing where we override the material. But again, like I said earlier, I want to try to make sure all of the materials, to use a single material for the palette. And the way that I think I'm going to implement that is by using this mesh data tool that we were talking about way at the beginning of the stream to actually modify the button mesh to set the vertex colors. So another option would be to make, like a unique material that has its albedo color set to this color, but then we're going to have 16 materials for each of the 16 buttons, which is dumb. We don't need that. So we're going to modify the meshes on the buttons that are the different colors to have the vertex colors set to something, and then we're going to make a single material that will use the vertex colors if they're there. and I'm not entirely sure how we'll have this material work. It'll be something like, if there are no vertex colors, use the albedo. If there are vertex colors, use those. And if there are UVs, then grab part of the texture atlas, and that's how we'll put the icons on the buttons. But that way, we're going to have everything in the palette using a single material, which is what I was hoping we were going to work on during the stream, but we've totally run out of time. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test that these buttons actually change the color, and then the next piece of actually making the buttons look the color is something I'm either going to work on off stream or on the next stream. We'll have to see. So let's deploy this to the headset. I hope this stream didn't turn out to be too fiddly. Too much just like mathing our way around some sizes and stuff. That's the struggle. I either need to do longer streams or I don't know. Pick whoa. There's a couple of problems here. Okay, so here I'm drawing in white. Let me just hit a random button. Oh, and they went up instead of down. What is happening? Okay, let's fix this. Let's fix this weirdness before we move on. There's a couple of problems here. So number one, all of the old color buttons are still here. Delete those. We're now dynamically creating them. Now, also when we were trying to avoid doing work earlier, we messed with the rotation, and it seems that the translation of the palette is also off. So we'll clear that, and let's deploy that again, and this should fix the problem. Hey, Cześć Krzysztof. You watched my my old Polish YouTube videos? I'm still doing YouTube videos. Just yep. No. Tak właśnie. I did have such a channel. I still have a channel, but it is now related to game dev. I have not updated my my Polish channel in quite a long time. Do you want me to say that again in Polish? I don't know how good your English is. No, w każdym razie nadal mam kanał na YouTubie, tylko że nie nagrałem filmików do mojego starego kanału od wielu lat. Teraz mam kanał na temat tworzenia gier komputerowych i no, zapraszam. Okay. Okay, that's the blocks. Here we go. Here we go. They're in the right place. They're moving the right direction. And they are changing the color? Yes, they are changing the color. Why does everything seem to want to be gray, though? Black. What was white? I didn't check if the right color came up when we first loaded in. Okay. But I think that's good. I think that's good. I think that's good. Sorry, guys, that we didn't get to the material stuff, which I think would have been really interesting. But you know, we've laid the groundwork for getting this prototype out to more people to test it. I know, Phil, if you're still on, that you're interested to play it. We're one step closer to that day when I can send it off to you and anyone else. So thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you on Discord or in the comments or on the next stream next week. So thanks everyone for coming. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.